Hi, this is Ken. We're going to do something a little bit differently. I wanted to take a look at doing navigation systems and doing evaluations for navigation systems. I didn't want this to be super heavy. I wanted to really point this out that when you're going through the UX process, you may not always have the chance to work on a very regimented, long process. And so maybe the best that you can do is just a quick ad hoc evaluation. And so I wanted to set up a scenario. Let's say you're working at apple.com. And your boss comes up to you and says, we're going to have a meeting with the vice president. The vice president is tossing around some ideas on how they might revamp the top navigation and the main navigation system and maybe the second tier of the navigation system. So I want you to come up with a few ideas in a couple of days so that you can be ready to at least have a point of view, not necessarily to present anything, but just ready to be in an engaged discussion. So with this, obviously you're not going to be able to do research. You've only got a few days. And so what I would recommend to you is just to do a very, very lightweight, quick evaluations. You're not trying to come down to some definitive scores on anything. So what you could do is just set up a simple rose thorn buds. If you haven't heard about rose thorn buds, it's just a way to categorize certain perspectives. A rose being something that's positive, a thorn being something that's a pain point, and then a bud being something that shoots forth as something of an opportunity. So what you might want to do is first set up some kind of way of scoring something, and that's your rose thorn buds. It's just you're gonna just jot down points, and then you're gonna want to find some kind of categories that you're going to be wanting to be evaluating. Are you looking at the visual design? Are you looking at because you're a UX designer, I'm just going to come up with 3 categories that I think that would just give you a good starting point. And so the first one is structure. The second one is to look at labels or the language and the words. And the third point is take a look at the patterns. And so along these kind of categories, let's go ahead and just take a look. So let's get started. Okay, here we go. So we're at apple.com, and again, we're just going to be looking at this top navigation, and we're going to be looking at the second tier of navigation. Something I did want to point out to you is, if you ever did want to know exactly how the website is structured, Apple does have a big footer navigation, and it kind of lets you know there's a lot of different things under shop and learn. They've got services, and there's a whole host of things that come underneath that. There is account, there is Apple Store, for business, for education, for healthcare, for government, Apple values, and about Apple. So I wanted to take a look at that, and just because that gives you an idea of all the things that are not being included in this top navigation system. So when you look at this top navigation, the first thing that I see is that this really is oriented around the typical consumer for Apple. You see that there is a store, there's Mac, iPad, iPhone, Watch, AirPods, all very successful products. TV and home, only on Apple, accessories, support. And there's a search, and there's also a shopping basket. Well, so let's go ahead and start off with the rose. So for a rose, one thing I would say is, in general, your top navigation, you want it to be something where it's noticeable, it stands out, but it also isn't too dominating, because the main focus of a website is to be on the content. And so I'd say Apple's done a very good job there. They picked a kind of a subdued, it's not black, but it's dark gray. You've got good contrast. You've got, branded fonts, and they look elegant. So these are some roses. And then some other roses that I'm thinking about is their labels are very short. Store, Mac, 3-letter word, iPad, 4-letter word, iPhone, Watch, AirPods, TV, and home. So I think those are all very good, positive items. Let's go ahead and move on to some thorns. Well, one thing that I would start off with is, in general, it's sort of a best practice that you don't want to really have for one navigation system or one at least grouping of navigation to be more than 7 items. Anything more than 7 just appears to be a lot. There's a reason why phone numbers are 7 digits. And so looking at this, you kind of see, you count these off: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10 text items along with some other graphical navigation items. And so that's a lot. So I would definitely put that down as a thorn. An opportunity, a bud might be that you find a way to group these things, or you find a way to eliminate some things. So one thing I see is that there's redundancy between store and a lot of these products. For example, if I click on store, I can go ahead and click on iPhone, and I can also click on iPhone over here. I can click on Mac over here, and I could choose to buy it over here. But I can also click on Mac over here, and I could choose to buy it from here, which brings me up to a similar page. So there definitely is some redundancy, so that could remove one item. Even just graphically, if there were to be some kind of grouping, there might be an opportunity to give the feeling of simplicity by grouping, 5 or 7 of the items together. So that is kind of an opportunity that I kind of see right here. Something that I would say is a good positive rows is if I shrink down this navigation bar, it goes down very small, all the way to 836 pixels is what I measured. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's a very positive element. Even though I talk about the navigation having a lot of items, it is able to collapse down pretty small, and I think that goes down to their short labels. Another point I wanted to bring up was, I think some of the navigation items could give you a little bit of cognitive load here. You see this matter of watch. The fact that Apple is involved in entertainment, does that mean watching TV? I think you might be able to guess, but I think it also might be something that caused you to think a little bit. You also see this matter of TV and home, which is inconsistent. So this is another thorn. You have single product names, and then you go to this category of TV and home. And then you see this other category only on Apple. I would say that's another similar thorn. I might guess it, I might not. Another one is you see that there's accessories, which I think is fine. I'm not going to count that on either way. So again, there's a couple of more items that I'm kind of pulling away with. So, stepping back, one thing that I'm going to have to say on the positive side is I think for most customers looking at this navigation, you're definitely going to know you're at the right place. You're going to be oriented. And there's a very good chance that this top navigation is going to give you something that you're going to be interested in. If you're interested in an Apple product today, you're not looking for an obscure product like a credit card or an iPod, you're probably going to find out. And that's a really big rose there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at a deeper dive. When I come to the next section, definitely one thorn I would have to say is that there's no on state. I click on Mac and it's not on. And then I see that there's another navigation. As far as a pattern, I told you about, looking at it through the lens of maybe structure, labels, and patterns. This is a different pattern. It looks great. It's definitely, I can know where to go by just seeing the icon. Very descriptive. But it does kind of cause to question, what kind of navigation is it? Is it a main navigation? I'm kind of maybe more used to a side navigation or tabs or something that's obviously a secondary navigation. So let's go ahead and say we click on iMac. Okay. And so what we see here is the navigation now switched out on me. Let's go ahead and try this out again with iPad. So if I click on iPad and I click on just the regular iPad, see, that's interesting because now that navigation just disappeared. So the top navigation has the problem where it doesn't have an on state, so that can't give you orientation or serve somewhat like a breadcrumb. And then the secondary navigation, as I was saying, is not something that's constant. And when you click on it, you go into something that's completely new, and then you see a different secondary navigation. And then when I click on Why iPad, this is kind of global to all of iPads. I'm a little bit confused. Am I on... I believe I am on the regular iPad. If I click over here, I believe I'm just on this iPad, but then there is this tab iPad. So there's a little bit of confusion there. I think that could be a little bit more clear. So those are some pain points that I'm kind of bringing out. And then the other thing that I would say is this matter of kind of having this redundancy. What I'm kind of noticing here is that pages, it's as if there's different navigation systems that point to common content. And so what I mean by that is if I click on this buy over here, this takes me over here, and I got there from store. And if I come over to iPad over here, and I click on buy iPad, oops, sorry, let me do that again. And I click on buy over here, it takes me to kind of the same place. So you kind of see that there's these different experiences of being able to arrive at the store. So if I go ahead and click on iPad again, I click here, and see, this is interesting. It brings in this kind of interstitial, which gives me some of the information, not the full information. If I want to get the full information, I would just say that this is not a standard pattern, right? I've never seen a website do this. And, although Apple's a unique company and they're very creative, I would say anytime you're using some kind of pattern and it's not standard, there's always the potential for confusion. Patterns are called patterns because they're recognizable. We've seen them. They're something that's been repeated. And so that's what gives you the usability. So I go ahead and click on Explore iPad further. And now you kind of see I land on this page. So I'm really under this section of iPad over here. But again, this idea that the pages don't really live anywhere is a bit of a problem. This buy. Does buy live inside a store, or does buy live in iPad? I'm really not sure. Now, on the to tie this back a little bit, I will say, despite me saying this, I think I would have no problems buying anything. I think I would have no problems trying to find information. And again, from a global hierarchy, I do have to say, on a positive note, you definitely can find, the more popular products all right there from the top navigation, or there's a clue that you might find what you're looking for. Again, I'm just giving you evaluation from an ad hoc perspective. So there you go. I didn't want to go too deep. So I just wanted to give you an example of just kind of going through, and maybe you need to get ready for something. You're not able to do a deep dive research, but you can do some kind of ad hoc analysis on things by setting up something very simple in this kind of way. Again, thanks for sticking with me, and we're going to do part 2 on the next video. Thanks.